All right, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to cover a new topic called high stakes or micro stakes. Thanks to some of the guys who work with us, they came up with this topic. So I'm going to review hands, but I'm not going to tell you what the big blind is, who the players is, or anything else. We're just going to look at the hand. And afterwards, all of you can guess as to whether or not this hand was played at high stakes or at micro stakes. Because, oftentimes high stakes players make very good plays, but sometimes you see some ridiculous button clicking, and it seems like they were playing NL2. So, fun topic, and we're gonna look into it and see how good these high stakes players really are. Okay, we've got a 2.2x open raise size. Well, that's something you would usually see at the higher stakes, right? But who knows, all right? So small blind calls, that's a little bit less conventional. Most people play a 3-better fold strategy from the small blind because you're out of position, you don't have the initiative, there's a player left behind who can call or squeeze. And your range is kind of defined. It's kind of obvious what the villain has, right? He's got like the pocket eights, the pocket nines, the ace jack suited, maybe some ace kings, maybe some 10-9 suited, and some, king jack suited, a couple other hands. But it's pretty obvious to guess as to what your opponent's got. Maybe he's a bit lighter and he's got pocket threes or king 9 suited, ace 8 suited, but pretty much those good hands. All right, so board is king 10-9. Pretty good board for the small blind. He's going to have a couple of sets, a couple of straights, a couple of 2 pairs perhaps, but he checks. And villain number 1 also smashes this board. He's going to have every set, every suited 2 pair at least, and every straight. So he goes for a very weird bet size, kind of like 40% pot. Okay, fair enough. And the small blind goes for a big check raise. So when he goes for such a big check raise, he's representing at least 2 pair or better. It's difficult to just take king jack and check raise for value, right? When villain's betting range is, a lot of those types of hands, but also stronger hands. And now villain number 6 ends up calling, which is also very funny. He can have all the queen jack combinations for sure. Queen jack offsuit, I could see him have. Queen jack suited, maybe he would squeeze sometimes, right? Maybe he's crazy and even squeezes queen jack offsuit. So when he calls here, he's got maybe big flush draws, pair plus flush draws, like a 10-7 of spades type of hand. And he's not quite sure what to do. So straight is, some slow play straights, some pair plus draws, maybe a hand like 2 pair he can have as well. Or maybe villain 6 is a big fish and he's got, 10-5 of hearts. And villain number 1 call, so easily could have a flush draw himself. If he had a hand like, ace king, it's a very shitty spot because, you could be ahead, but there's so many bad runouts, right? With a queen and a jack and a spades or a 10 or a 9, and you could just be dead already or virtually dead. I believe against a set, you have, 3% or something? A little bit more, perhaps. This 10 turn changes everything. I mean, full houses get there, flushes get there. And let's see what villain number 1 does. I wouldn't be surprised if he really liked this card, but he does check. And river makes things more interesting. I guess it doesn't matter too much, right? How do you have a jack here? And now villain number 5 shoves. I mean, what is he bluffing with? It's such a strange hand, right? What is he bluffing with? Is he taking a hand like king queen and, he led thinly for value or check raised thinly for value? Now he's overbet shoving as a bluff. Does he have, I don't know. It's hard to say. Does he just float the ace queen of diamonds in order to make this play? That's a pretty crazy play. Okay, villain number 6 folds. That's at least a surprising play so far. And villain number 1, I think, has got him. I think he's got him. Okay, so villain 5 has queen jack of spades for the straight flush. Wow, okay. So I guess I can't blame him. And under the gun has 10-9 suited. Okay, very interesting. So villain number 5 flatted, which is fine, right? We said hands like king jack suited, queen jack suited could be in his range, and he check raised the nuts, and then he checked the turn. Probably trying to represent something like a weak flush or a hand like king queen. Or even a hand like queen jack, which isn't very happy. And on the river, he shoved all in him. He's got the nuts. It was a little bit obvious that villain number 1 could be trapping, with kings or 10-9 or pocket 9s, pocket 10s, something like that. But I mean, he kind of trapped himself because, the small blind had the nuts. So pretty interesting hand. And let me actually now reveal what stakes this was played at. Okay, so this was a 21K pot. Okay, 21K pot, so this was played at 5100, I assume. And let's see who the players are. Okay, so I had a sneaky suspicion that the small blind was either going to be Stefan or Lucky CPS. They're both at the table. Interesting. So Stefan had the Queen Jack of Spades. Fair enough. And the big blind was Papa Shush, who's actually a former BTS student. So, you know, he moved all the way up from 100 NL to now playing 5100. I'd like to see what he's got here. Very interesting as to what he had. Maybe even had a weak flush and he folded. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And Dex has 10-9 suited. Dex is a good player himself. I think his play is pretty reasonable, right? Open pre-flop, c-bet the flop's fine. You know, it's kind of awkward once you get check raised and there's a call behind, but okay, fair enough. And on the turn, he's thinking, well, man, this is a scary turn. I want to have some traps here. Let me just check this one behind, right? Maybe Stefan goes crazy on the river, which he did, except he had basically the one hand or one or two hands that beat him. So pretty nice hand to both guys. It was a pretty crazy hand, but I wouldn't say that anybody played his hand very badly or anything. So yeah, fun stuff. Okay, so we did a poll in the middle. We said type 2 for micro stakes, type 1 for high stakes, and most people seem to be typing 2. So yeah, you guys actually got it wrong. Okay, so we've got a 2.5x open raise size. A lot of people use a slightly smaller one, but 2.5 is absolutely fine. I mean, top players like Yassam Gale, for instance, use 2.5x. 12BB is a pretty big 3-bet, but nothing, out of the ordinary, and a call. 9-3 deuce is a pretty innocent looking board. I don't think Under the Gun has that many sets. You know, if he does, it's mostly pocket nines, but it's not that scary of a board. So Villain 9 can bet quite aggressively, which he does. And the 6 again doesn't matter too much. Yes, 6s, yes, 5-4 suited, but I think those combinations are not so relevant. So Villain number 9, it is a little bit surprising he checks. He should still be betting quite aggressively. If he has a hand like Pocket Kings, his hand is looking really good. So in position bets half pot. Some people bet a little bit smaller here, get some thin value. When you bet half pot here, you're definitely a little bit more polarized. You're making the pot larger. And Villain now raises to a sizing I can barely read. It seems to be basically a min raise. Oh, actually, he shoved it for 83. Yeah, he shoved for 83. I really like this play, actually. He's putting a lot of pressure on Villain number 10. If Villain number 10 has 2 10s, he's in a tough spot because the big blind player can easily have jacks, queens, kings, aces. So yeah, you're in a shitty spot. That's one of the reasons why a small bet actually is pretty nice. And even if he has a draw, right, like 10-9 of diamonds, he's in a tough spot. So Villain number 10, I assume, is going to call, which he does. 4 shouldn't really matter too much. I guess ace-5 suited is possible of diamonds, but, other than that, it shouldn't matter too much. So Villain number 9 is pocket queens, which is very reasonable. Definitely 3-bet, definitely bet the flop, and you can check raise the turn if you like for, value, but also just get the money in. There's a lot of ugly runouts, and, queens is looking pretty good right now, but not so much on many rivers, like this one. And Under the Gun has pocket kings. Okay, so that's a reasonable hand. You don't always have to 4-bet, and versus a check raise, I'll know where you can fold. Villain had a worse value hand in queens, right? He could have had jacks or 10s. He could have had a couple of bluffs, like ace-5 of diamonds. Or maybe he just check raises all in with 10-9 of diamonds. Or maybe he just shoves all in as a bluff with, ace-king, ace-queen. So no way you can fold pocket kings. I'll give Under the Gun a high rating of, let's say, 8.5. I think it could have been played a little bit better. And I think the big blind played like a 9. I think he played his hand great. So I like both plays. Was this played at high stakes? I don't know. I think yes. I mean, there's a couple of things I would have changed. I definitely wouldn't give either one of them a 10. But I think it was played all right. So what do you guys think? Let me change it into big blinds. Okay, so there's $31 in the pot. Seems a little bit too little for high stakes. So, okay, it was actually NL. I'm actually looking at the top left. It's NL 16. So, okay, I got that one wrong. So, man, nice play. Not bad at all. Let's see. What'd you guys guess? So, most people said micro stakes. Okay, you got it right, but barely. You barely got it right. 3 big blind open raise. That's a little bit unconventional, but some good players use that sizing. Most people go smaller, though. And the small blind flats here, which is again a bit unconventional, you're getting a very bad price to flat out of position. So 3-betting generally makes more sense. But what's possible is that, let's say villain number 16 is a reg and villain number 13 is a big fish, and villain 16 is just making it larger and larger, trying to milk the small blind, right? So there's nothing that suggests just yet, oh, this must be a low stakes hand. Big blind squeezes, which I like. Sizing is a little bit too small. So villain number 16 calls. Could be trying to, get number 13 to come along. Pot's already pretty large. And the queen 8-4 is pretty dry. Guys could have sets here, some 2 pairs. Well, 1 pairs and sets. 2 pairs, not so much. It gets checked through so far. Villain number 16 should probably bet on the smaller side if he does bet. Get some thin value, get protection, get some fold equity. Villain number 13 checks, saying he's got either nothing or a medium strength hand. Occasionally could be trapping. And villain number 14 ends up betting here. So he could have been trapping the flop with a hand like pocket kings, trying to check raise, or a hand like pocket queens. Or he could even think a hand like pocket jacks is good enough to value bet at least once, maybe twice. Villain 16 probably had a hand like ace jack suited. And now villain 13 check min raises, which is kind of scary, right? Assuming this player is a recreational player, and I don't know if he is. When recreational players check min raise turn in big pots, that is a really strong tell they've got it. So, maybe now Reg will check min raise me today if he hears this, just to mess with me. But especially recreational players, when they start min raising in big pots, that often means, hey, it's such a good price, please call me, even though I've got the nuts. So villain 14 calls, okay. River 10 doesn't change much, I would say. I guess villain 14 could have had like 10s or queens, but nothing else. And now small blind puts the big blind all in. Makes sense. There's only about a third pot behind, so kind of a shitty spot. Okay, so I'm expecting villain number 13 to show up with a really weird hand. Okay, he does not. Wow, okay. So villain number 13, our read was spot on, right? He flatted 8 and then called the squeeze, fair enough. And then he actually check raised, which is pretty cool, pretty tricky, but he check min raised the turn with the nuts. So our read was right. He was just trying to check min raise to get in as much money as he could with the nuts, right? That's a classic recreational player move. And then villain number 14 actually made a really cool play. He squeezed queens, which he always should, although the sizing was too small. And then he actually checked the flop because he thought, well, this board is so dry. I'm going to get the money in anyway if my opponent has 4s or 8s. And I can actually have people catch up, right? So they can maybe bet a hand like King 10 and maybe catch up in later streets and call down or bluff it off. So yeah, really nice play by the villain number 14. I would have preferred a slightly different bet size on the turn, I guess, but I'll give him a 9+. And villain number 13, I'll give him a 7. I mean, he managed to put the money in with a set, which is not a bad play, but it could have been played a little bit better. So let's see. Micro stakes or high stakes, guys? Tell me. Okay, micro stakes 75%. So let's see if we're right. Okay, I don't know any of these names. I think I've seen Nacho before. And okay, so this hand was played on NL10. Okay, so definitely low stakes. Even though it was played at low stakes, just like the previous hand, I think these hands are played fine. Yes, a lot of details, could be improved upon, but it's not as if both guys just played it terribly, right? So yeah, pretty fun hand. Also, guys, please let me know if you actually like this format. We came up with a couple new formats that we're going to be trying. We've got a 4-hand a game. We've got the cutoff actually has 27 big blinds, basically. Okay, so I guess it's not relevant. Villain number 5 min raises the button. And so we've seen plenty of different sizes, right? It's kind of fun. And all of these strategies work in different ways. Small blind flats, okay, and the big blind is getting a really good price to call. If this is high stakes, I mean, the rake's very low, which also helps. If it's low stakes, that kind of hurts you a little bit. And so villain number 3 actually donks the small blind for a third of the pot, which is a pretty advanced play, which can work. He's basically saying, hey, my range is mostly middling, decent hands, and my entire range hits this board. So I'm actually going to lead and apply some pressure multi-way. And the big blind saying, hey, I'm not going to allow you to do that, so I'm going to raise, kick the other player out of the pot, and get you heads up, and not give you this cheap pot, right, for a third of the pot. And so the button is saying, well, screw both of you. I'm not going to let you bet super thinly for value. I'm not going to let you raise thinly, kick me out. I'm going to raise. Wow. And villain number 3 now shoves. So what did one of our guys just say? Flat small blind and donk means set. Okay. Maybe he's got a set. Pocket 3s make a lot of sense. Pocket 8s make a lot of sense. Maybe even pocket 10s. 10-8 suited. Maybe like ace 3 of hearts would be cool. So the button does end up calling. Okay. Turns to 5 doesn't mean anything. Maybe 6, 7 of hearts. River ace shouldn't really matter. Maybe ace 10, but unlikely. And river's a king. Maybe pocket kings for the button. And the 8 helps a little bit. Okay, so the small blind has pocket 8s. I mean, see how good our listeners are, our viewers are, right? They got it right. Flat small blind and get all in means set. And the button has 10-4 suited. Okay. Yeah, so if I had to rate the small blind's play, it's difficult to say how good a small blind leading strategy is, so let's not comment on that. Let's just assume that's fine. Overall, just getting it in with a set, unblocking all the other hands, it seems pretty good. So yeah, I'll give him a high rating, maybe like a 9. The button, I understand what he's doing. It's not as bad as it looks. I mean, the play looks like a 2 out of 10. It is way better than that, but it's like a 5 out of 10, right? So it is a very bad play, but it's not as bad as it looks. So I assume this hand was played at high stakes, but I shouldn't even say that. What do you guys think? And I think I even know who played these. I think there's about a 50% chance I can guess who both of these guys are. There's only a few guys who do this type of stuff. So, it's only a list of like 4 or 5 people. And I think I know which 2 suspects these guys are. Yeah, let's see the stakes. Okay, I was right. I thought it was these 2. It had to be them. Yeah, so, I mean, we're playing NL50 here, but actually quite deep stacked. And, okay. I actually was a little bit wrong. I thought it was Lucky CPS on the button and Stefan in the small blind, so I was wrong about that one. But, yeah, okay. I thought it was these 2 guys. Okay. And C-San is actually a Japanese billionaire who's actually a good player. So, interesting hand by both guys, to say the least.